It's so nice to have football back. And as we approach the onset of week 1, we have had week 0, which 0 is not a number, so I don't know why we do that, television. As we approach the first full slate of games, it's just very, very exciting. But before we get into that, let's, Adam, I have to ask you a question. I already know Terry's answer, but you must answer this question before we proceed any farther. And you may be seeing where I'm going here, but the question is, do you, Adam, salt your watermelon?
Okay.
Very controversial topic.
Well, okay. Initially, no. I was anti-salt for many, many years. And then as I got into my adolescence, I experimented with salting. And it was just, it was
it just a college phase?
It was just a college thing. It was just a phase. It was just, and, I went back to the tried and true. No, I do not salt my watermelon, although my grandfather was a big salter, but not me. He tried to get me to buy into it, but I wouldn't bite.
I think Southern grandparents needed to salt most everything they ate, and that just kind of bled over to things. But as I told the group last recording, that I'm a fan. Kosher salt is good because it's got larger flakes and you don't need to use as much of it, and it kind of dissolves into whatever you're salting. So a very teeny tiny little bit of kosher salt. But if I don't have salt, I'm going to enjoy the watermelon just as much. So
I'm still not salting it.
No, I have 2 no salters and a 1 salter. So there we go. And there are no character judgments. This is not a value-based judgment system here. Just simply putting information out into the world. I'm a proponent of like what you like.
But you know what, Scott? I love you because you love salt on your watermelon. That's what it's all about.
Just give peace a chance. All right, Terry, if you were given, I'm going to give you 3. Usually it's 1, but you're going to be banished to a deserted island forever. And I'm going to give you 3 musical artists to take with you. What are those 3?
Oh, wow. 3. Okay. So artists or bands?
Bands, artists, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got to take Driving and Crying. I have to. Kevin Kenny, one of the greatest. Yep, one of the greatest singers of all time. Still rocking. Driving and Crying, still out there rocking and doing concerts. So I got to take them. I've got to take Jimmy Buffett. I'm sorry, but if I'm going to be on an island, I want to be on an island with Jimmy Buffett because every day will be Margaritaville. And then I think I'm gonna bring some new blood with us. There's a band out there right now that I really love, and they've got a really cool sound. They're called Cannons, and they're actually from Florida, I think. Yeah, from Florida. And so I love their music, and I'm gonna bring them, and me, Kevin Kenny, all of Driving and Crying, and Jimmy Buffett. We'll just sit back and we'll let Cannons entertain on the island.
Adam, what about you? Your 3 acts you're taking to your deserted island.
Oh, wow. Well, Terry got me on one of them. I'm definitely taking Driving and Crying with me. Me and Kev are definitely going there. And got to bring coin flip, Metallica, Def Leppard. I think I'm going to go Metallica. And since I'm on an island, I'm kind of chilling out. I'm going to bring some James Taylor with me.
Interesting. Very diverse group of
I'm all about
musicians
diversity.
There.
Diversity, equity, inclusion. That's all me.
Boo. This is my James Hetfield impersonation. Yeah. If you had, before we did this, if you had given me 100 guesses, I never would have said that we would have had 2 votes for Driving and Crying. A throwback Atlanta Athens corridor band from back in the day. I never would have guessed we'd have gotten that. I guess maybe I should have, based on who I'm talking to. As for me, I think that it would definitely be Jimmy Buffett was, I don't apologize for this because Jimmy Buffett was, I'm 55 years old and Jimmy Buffett was the background music to my life. Before there was any such thing as a parrot head or any of this marketing stuff, it was just what was on the 8-track. That's right. I said 8-track. And along with Buffett, I am bringing the Eagles and Van Halen. So there you go.
Solid.
The
That's
Eagles,
a strong trio.
Van Halen, there has always been something about the sound of Eddie Van Halen's guitar that brings me visceral joy. It's not even something that I think about. When I hear the sound of his guitar, I know it from anywhere, and it brings me joy. Probably has something to do with when, everything usually with music is related back, and the same with sports too, but with music is related back to that formative sort of adolescent time in our childhood where things kind of get cemented in. You're sort of breaking away from your parents' music and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a pretty weird, difficult time for me. And so I locked into some musical access. For the Eagles, they are the greatest vocal musical combination
100% agree
that has ever been.
Their vocals, absolutely.
And they get hate from some corners, and I just don't understand it. I'm like, dude, if you don't dig the music, that's one thing, but so ultra talented. And for me, I started out as a singer and developed into other instruments through my musical career. And for me, whenever I hear spot on executed harmony and just tier one vocals, it just sends me places. And so and the Eagles also, Hotel California, and the two, when we're talking about vinyl and the albums your parents had in the stack underneath the stereo, Hotel California and their greatest hits was, of course, the iconic album cover, the blue album cover with the eagle skull. And isn't it weird that they had that is along with Michael Jackson's Thriller and
first album.
One other thing I can't think of at the moment is the number one selling. Those are the top selling albums of all time, and that was like 1974, I think, that first Eagles Greatest Hits came out.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I think what we're seeing, and I think the sleight of hand with the expansion of the college football playoff, is that everybody wants to say that we are bringing more teams to the table and giving more G5 type teams and more non-superpower teams a chance, and I disagree.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, no, I agree with you totally. You're not.
You're essentially guaranteeing, and this goes back to what I said about that one loss crippling your season. You're essentially guaranteeing forever that Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and who else? Pick two other schools. You're essentially guaranteeing that one of those teams will win the national championship forever, because you can get, and the other thing is that you're not going to get more G5 or lesser power 4 teams in. You're going to get more SEC schools and Big Ten schools in. For example, if you have somebody like LSU with 3 losses, or somebody like Michigan with 3 losses, they're getting in over a G5.
Yeah.
They're getting in.
A conference like the ACC this year, they're probably not going to get more than one team, and neither will the Big 12, because they are not as loaded as the Big Ten and the SEC. Those two conferences, they're going to dominate football from here on out. And when we talk about NIL money, that's what's really going to change. And it already has. That's really what is changing the game at college football level.
Yeah, something needs to be done about that. And I think I know there's legislation underway, but for me, I don't want to see, I know a lot of people don't care, but I do. I tend to think on a macro level, and I want more better people in this world, not fewer. I want more people with the opportunities that so many countless thousands of college athletes have gotten through scholarships over the years. And I think the elements of the 12-team playoff and however many they get to, whatever we call this NIL, which is a total misnomer, and then even the transfer portal is going to hurt, if not outright kill, some smaller programs. And people are going to see, like, the super conferences. Did you guys watch Ted Lasso when it was on?
Not all.
The owner of Richmond, AFC Richmond, Rebecca, she gave a speech when this billionaire came in and wanted to build a super league out of these soccer teams, and everybody knew it was going to be to the detriment of the sport because everything was going to cost more. The fans weren't going to have access, and you were going to have teams and players that were going to fall by the wayside. And then she gave a great speech about the game doesn't belong to us, meaning she was talking about the power brokers, the owners. The game doesn't belong to us. It belongs to everyone else. And I don't want to see smaller schools outright killed, their programs outright killed because of budgetary concerns or damage. And I'd like to see more of a give back. These players are now making a lot of money, and I have no problem with that at all. No problem with that at all. I'd like to see it not so insane. When it first started out, NIL was NIL. It was players signing little endorsement deals with local restaurants and things like that, and I think that's fantastic. But the whole, we're going to pay for play, but we're not going to call it that. It's like, dude, just pick one, you know?
There's legislation in the works. Well, guess what that means? That means the government's going to step in. They're going to write some sort of bill. And now those players are going to have to, be employees. All that money is going to be disclosed. How much is this kid getting? Because right now, I think a lot of those numbers that you're hearing, they're garbage.
Yeah, I agree.
These guys that are he's getting $500,000 from this school. They paid him $1.2 million to transfer to Colorado. Well, that's just, I don't think any of that's true. I think they're way overestimating how much some of these guys are getting. And eventually those boosters that are stroking those $5-10 million checks, they're going to be like, okay, what are we getting for our money? They have that much money because they're smart with money. They're not going to just keep throwing money at these programs without results. So you have to look at it from a perspective of it is now officially a business, okay? And we're seeing it like that. Now, does that ruin it completely for the fans? I mean, if you can't compete, it does.
Well, kind of to allude to what you said, Adam, last year when we were going through this and everybody's like, heck yeah, throw it all in there, start these collectives. And these collectives were insane, man. And I'm thinking, okay, first of all, are we really going to start paying high schoolers more than an NFL rookie contract? And what's going to happen when we get to the first $100 million player payroll in college football?
Oh, it's going to happen. Look, Pandora's box is open, Scott. You're not getting this back in the box.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And these collectives, what they're going to end up doing is they're going to end up looking like state lotteries. And they take that money and they put it in the collective and it starts earning interest and they do things to grow it and it's never going away. And these kids are making a lot of money. When we see it at the high school level in Georgia, we can name multiple kids in the state of Georgia at the high school level that have NIL deals right now. Yeah. And so you're not getting this back in the box.
Yeah. No, and let me piggyback on what he said. It's expanding, but here's another wrinkle to think about at the college level, even high school level. I don't know if it'll get that far, but college level, where you talk about equal access, right? So if all these football players are getting all this money, what about the volleyball players? What about the soccer players?
Yeah.
And that's just I'm just being devil's advocate argument.
No, you have to,
but that has to, the swimmers. Okay?
Yeah, you have to consider that
track
because
and field people that are going to the Olympics. What about them?
Right. You know who is considering that is all the lawyers.
Right. And as the collectives grow, you'll see the volleyball team, the softball team, the baseball team start to be able to pull from that. Because
you hope.
No, you will. You will. That's what's going to happen.
It'll be legislated.
Well, it's going to have to be because these collectives they're tweaking stuff where you can assign your donation to a sport or whatever.
Yep.
What I'd like to see out of all of this is I guess, a partnership because the NFL, would the NFL exist as it is, at least without college football? And the NFL doesn't give anything to college football. I would like to see this just sort of big circular partnership with all of these people that are making all of these bazillions of dollars to make sure that the future of the sport all the way down to the peewee level is healthy. And I include these players with that because these players are now, some of them, millionaires. And I would like to see some give back to make sure that the sport that got them this crazy NIL era is taken care of in whatever iteration it takes 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the line. So that other kids can take advantage of that too. Yeah. Let me ask you this. I guarantee you, I don't know when and if this will ever happen in the rest of my life. And it pains me to say that, but when and if Georgia loses 3 games, Georgia's going to get in over a 3-loss Georgia team will get in over 2-loss Kentucky team.
That depends on who the 3 losses are to.
Yeah.
That would depend.
Think about that.
Because keep in mind, Kirby Smart has not lost a game to any current coach in college football.
Y'all haven't lost a regular season game in 3 years, right?
No. The only coach that has beaten Kirby Smart in the last 3 years is Saban.
Harbaugh? Oh, Saban.
Harbaugh, no.
Georgia hadn't lost at all except for in the SEC championship game. That's it, right?
Oh,
yeah,
Michigan beat Alabama.
Only Saban. Yes.
Who did Michigan beat for the title last year?
Washington.
Who's Saban's replacement.
Alabama now. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, if Georgia loses 3 games this year, they might still get in, because you look at that schedule at Austin to play University of Texas, at Ole Miss, at the Grove, and also don't forget at Alabama.
Yeah, it's about time y'all had a tough schedule.
Look,
true.
It'll get tougher if we take Auburn off the schedule. I mean, let's just be honest about that.
What I told my brothers not long ago was, and I mean this sincerely, it can come off as a little bit of a dig just because we're all fans of different teams, but I mean this sincerely, and I told them that they should they should get on their, look at that, they should get on their knees and pray to whoever red and black God exists in their world, that the timing, that all of the stars that aligned for Georgia aligned when they did. And that starts with Kirby, who I wanted desperately.
Everybody wanted him. He's a great coach.
And proceeded to go, the stars further aligned with all 3 of Georgia's biggest historical rivals, Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn, essentially being smoldering, stinky garbage for the last 10 years.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and look, having said that, I'm telling you, this is the deepest team Kirby Smart's ever had. Like, this could be his best team that he's had at Georgia, which is a scary thought.
I speak for the rest of the country when I say, yay.
Listen, look.
Great.
Here's the thing, and like I've mentioned that I think it's great, the 12-team playoff. I'm all for it, because for Kentucky, I mean, you look at each game, okay, and we have a tough schedule, and I think the 3 games that are key for us is the second game of the year. If we don't beat South Carolina, we have a very different season. We're not beating Georgia. We're not beating Texas at Texas, and we play terrible at Tennessee. So we've got to beat South Carolina. We've handled Florida. We can beat them, but we've got to beat South Carolina, and we've got to win either, I think, the Ole Miss game or the Auburn game. And
where's that Ole Miss game at?
That's at Ole Miss. So we need to win 2 of those 3.
That's a tough place to play, man.
They're a playoff team this year.
If we win 2 of those 3, I mean, we'll be 8-4. If we somehow can switch. Now, we had them beat 2 years ago and beat them on a last-second touchdown, and Flag called it back, and we ended up losing by like 2 points. But
you know what I hate about an 8-4 season now is that it was okay. And if you're talking about a team, a program like Kentucky or Ole Miss or Mississippi State, historically speaking, 8-4 was legit, man. And you were happy and you moved on with it and you came back and played the next season. And now with everything that's going on, it's like, 8 wins.
Here's what we traded. We traded Mississippi State for at Texas.
Georgia does, all kidding aside, has a legit beast of a schedule. And
they're going to get tested.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I do love that y'all are got Alabama in the regular season. And this whole Texas-Oklahoma thing should be interesting. We have the dumbest schedule in the world in that we play our first 5 games at home, and then we don't come home again until after Halloween. We have no home games in October, which I find to be a crime against humanity, because in the South,
those 2-year contracts, that's what happens. And sometimes they stack up against you, and that's what you're seeing. Some of those chickens come home to roost. Yeah. But 8-4 in the SEC or the Big Ten now, that's a damn achievement.
Yeah, it is
those
now.
2 conferences.
Yeah, now with what this 16-team conference looks like now, 8 wins, you're looking at that going, damn, man, that was hard.
Yeah, seriously.
You got to bring it every week.
All right, last, before we get out of here, I know you guys got to go. The transfer portal. And speaking of doing damage, and this is one of those dichotomy type of topics, because inherently we want everyone to have the freedom to do what they need to do, but with great freedom comes great responsibility. And I'd like for a system to be in place where we're not, I think it's very seldom, I'll put it this way, I think it's very seldom that a young athlete will transfer because the situation is like untenable for them. Like it's a toxic situation, or, everybody throws that out there. Well, whatever excuse it was, when in reality, let's be quite frank about this, that they didn't get the exact outcome that they wanted, and they're gone. And you can say what you want to say about the freedom aspect of that, but what is it doing? First of all, we all saw what the coaches all have said, in that it's almost impossible to manage your roster now because it turns over more than once a year. And furthermore, going back to what I said about care about other, the health of the sport. I care about the health of the sport. And I think for the sport to be healthy holistically and for everything to function as it should, that you need Georgia State and Tulane and, Oregon State. You need schools like that to have healthy, viable programs. And particularly on the G5 and lower level, they're not going to be able to hold. A kid has a great year, peace out, homies, right? Unless
they become free agents.
Yeah, unless he's got some real super good character and got some good people around him and saying, let's talk before you just run off. Let's talk about what's actually best let's play the long game here. What's going to be best for you? Because there's too much grab for the short money. And I get it. I understand it's real hard to turn a big pile of money down, but that's why these young athletes really desperately need mentors and people around them who will help them think past the short term, because you can't spend cars and weed and tattoos and clothes and all this other stuff when you're 40 and broke. And we all know what the stats are with professional athletes. It's something like 85% of all professional athletes declare bankruptcy within 3 years of leaving the game. It's insane. But the transfer portal. The transfer portal, to me, that evil triumvirate, when we talk about the expanded playoff, NIL, and the transfer portal, I think the transfer portal has the potential to do some real damage to the roots of the sport.
From Kentucky's, I mean, we're kind of the guy that's going out and grabbing, okay? Because we haven't had anybody approach. I don't think we've lost, but a handful of guys, and nobody significant. Now, Georgia, I mean, we've got Georgia's quarterback. I mean, he's our starting quarterback.
We got their they linebacker. Have 3 or 4 more.
That's just it. They do. So from my aspect, I think it is hard to manage a roster, but I think from the Kentucky fans aspect, as long as we keep our core guys and we're adding pieces. It's not like we're Colorado and we're turning over a whole roster in one season. And that's just a friggin' train wreck out there.
There's definitely positives to it. If you're a coach coming into a situation, like if you're a new hire coach and you're walking into a dumpster fire like Hugh Freeze did, then the transfer portal can certainly help you at least put a team on the field, because boy, it got real crazy there in that program for a minute. But you look at what Kirby does. Kirby plugs one or two gaps here and there, but he's so deep in high school recruiting in that ultra fertile area that he doesn't need to use it like that, as opposed to Lane Kiffin in a program like Ole Miss and a philosophy like Lane Kiffin has, and that dude's pulling everything from the portal. So
yeah, I'm not a fan of the portal. I think it's just lessening college football. I get kids want to be able to move on to another school if they choose, but there's got to be some ramifications. There's got to be, okay, you're transferring. Here is what you have to do. You have to sit out for this many games, or you have to sit out, whatever. It can't just be, I'm mad at the coach, I'm leaving, I'm doing whatever. But it comes down to the word commitment, and these kids they're forgetting what the word commitment means.
I don't think they're ever being taught.
No, and it's starting at the high school level, Scott, and we see it. I see it in the high school athletics. I see the same kid playing on 3 different basketball teams over 3 different years. And, it's selfish, and many times it's the
parents. It's always the people around them, right?
Yeah, some of these people turn into sports pimps, and they're trying to live through their kids, and that's where the loss of the word commitment starts, is at the high school level. And so I'm not a fan of the transfer portal at the college level without some type of, you got to pay something.
Yeah. And
I think a consequence.
I agree with that. Yeah, there should be, but I think even on the flip side of that coin is you can incentivize staying by using NIL. You can, I think, Josh Pate, I think, talks about this, where you start putting mechanisms in place, and they're going to have contracts eventually, or people are just, it's going to be haywire. So you come in, you sign this, which used to be a scholarship, is now a contract, I guess, and your incentive, you still have the freedom to leave. You can transfer, but we're going to incentivize your income by you coming back as a sophomore and a junior and maybe a senior by juicing that contract or NIL payment or whatever you want to call it. So you can incentivize it, along with, putting safety nets in place to keep people from just, like, what is the deal with this Caden Proctor situation over the offseason? You know what I'm talking about? The Alabama offensive lineman, the freshman, he came from Iowa. It was a big deal for them to sign him out of high school, for Bama to sign him out of high school away from Iowa. Like, I think he might have been the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. And he plays his freshman year at Alabama and then transfers to Iowa over the summer, I think, or over right after the season during the winter. And then, like, what, 2-3 weeks later, transfers back to Bama. What is that?
Yeah, it's the Wild West. I mean, none of this is helping the sport, and they're going to have to put some type of bumper guards in place for both NIL and transfers. If you don't.
Yeah, I think what needs to happen is college football needs some sort of czar. Maybe it's Nick Saban, because I genuinely think that Saban cares about the game. And I think that's one of the reasons that he got out. But there's too many people at the switches of power that don't really care about the game, and that are also maybe not so terribly bright when it comes to foresight. So we need people like Nick Saban, and I don't know, people like Archie Manning, people like this who could pull the levers, and people who really genuinely care about the health of the future of college football. I don't know otherwise, because if you get, like we talked about, if you get the government involved, which it already is, and there's nothing we can do about that, but that tells you everyone knows. And if you don't know, if you're too young to know this line, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language: I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
I'm here to help.